Hey, do-it-yourselfers, how you doing? I thought I'd share some observations and things I encountered through the year, hoping at least one of them will help you in your endeavors. I had interesting luck this year, parts versus aftermarket. I've had horrible luck with aftermarket parts, not fitting, not performing as well, and some just not lasting. One example is I did a Subaru front axle on a Crosstrek, passenger front. Owner wanted to save some money, so we went aftermarket. The axle didn't even last 100 miles. And we decided at that point, do OEM, installed it. It has several thousand miles on it, no problem. That just sharing you my experience with sensors, mass airflow meters. OEM's the way to go. It costs more, but there's a reason. How I reason with the customer is that, how old's their car? 8 years old? Well, that's an OEM part that lasted 8 years. I highly doubt the aftermarket part will last that long. You may have different experience. That's okay. Again, I'm just sharing my experience. Part shortages. Oh my gosh. If you look at the year this was recorded, it's 2022 really suffered from the effects of COVID. So shortages, lots of part shortages, especially in electronics, but also in something as simple as light bulbs for an instrument panel on a Honda. I had to turn down many jobs because of just couldn't get the part in time or at all. Undercarriage shields, like for BMW, Mercedes, just couldn't get them. They weren't around. So that really hampered and affected my business. This was a big deal. You got to be careful. Experience really helps here, but if you don't have a lot of experience, really rely on trusted reference material. I've had great luck with eautorepair.net, where you get good OEM quality manuals and wiring diagrams. An example, if you go to, I was working on a Mazda 3, and I was working on the rear caliper bolt, and it was not as large as the front. I believe the 12 was a 12 and the rear was a 10, something like that. Can't recall. But I went on a website and it said 75 for front and rear. No way. I would have snapped that bolt. I went to the manual, eautorepair.net, and it was 45. Car's running great. Another thing, on this same car, the rear parking brake was electric. And it says, do not turn piston when compressing it. You can cause damage. Whereas it looked like a rotating type piston. It had the 4 indentions to put your adapter in there and turn it as you put in. But it said not to. So again, not one place on the internet said that, but the manual did. Just my experience. Hope it's helpful for you. I'm noticing more and more that in one model year, they make changes to the cars being produced. It could be because of COVID, cost savings, part shortages, don't know. But wow, it's been very challenging getting parts to work on the vehicles I've worked on. And some aren't really that old. For example, I was working on I believe it's a Ford or Mazda, I can't remember. I believe it's Ford. We had to determine where it was actually manufactured. I'm sorry, it was a Mazda, forgive me. We had to know, was it manufactured in Mexico or Japan? Because the rear rotors would be different. So what I always do, if you can, take the part in hand when you're picking up the part, even at the dealer. And if you can't, if it's on the car, you have to order parts before the client gets there. The first step is to match parts. Take off the wheel, let's say, and make sure that the rotor looks the same width, same diameter, same bolt pattern, all that stuff. Make sure the pads look alike. That would be my input. Pros do this anyway, but I thought I'd share that. I have lots of stories about parts not working out of the box or not functioning the same as the OEM part. If you're going to buy parts, make sure to buy it from a very reputable source. Dealer, in person, the most solid you're going to get. Online, I had good luck with ECS Tuning. Again, no one is sponsoring this video, so this is all just information. I have had good luck buying parts on eBay, but I buy them from auto recyclers. I've had clients purchase an IPR valve for a diesel Power Stroke on eBay and on Amazon and a reputable four-wheel drive site, and the part installed looked great, great packaging, didn't work. Through engine codes, car wouldn't run. We went OEM, installed it, car ran great. Just telling you my experience. Lots of shady shops out there. I think because times are tough, people, the greedy side of some shops come out, which is sad. So if you're a mechanic, please don't be one of them. It's really worth having integrity and being able to look at yourself in the mirror. I've encountered many. I'll share a couple with you this year. One was a Honda Civic. I worked on this car. I did a front and rear brake job on it. A person took it in to do transmission service on it, and the mechanic in the back suggested brake fluid flush for $170. I went in with the owner, didn't say anything. And then when the service writer said, oh yeah, we suggest a brake fluid change, that's when I sort of went out of character and said, I'm very surprised about that. Because they even commented the brakes were great. I said, I did the brake job on this car, and whenever I do a brake job, I do a brake fluid flush. So I'm very surprised that your tech said I needed new brake fluid. He hemmed and hawed for a couple seconds, searched the ceiling for an answer, and said, well, maybe the mechanic just, looked at the miles and suggested it. Well, nonetheless, if for owners who aren't informed or don't keep careful records of what was done with their car, they would have paid for a flush they didn't need it. That's $170 that they didn't need to spend. So just keep careful records, or bring a trusted auto mechanic with you, or whatever. I'm just telling you what I experienced. Here's another one. If you quickly look at this, that's $6,000 worth of work. Person came to me, and after they went to the dealer with a GX35 Infiniti, it's an SUV type vehicle, and the dealer said that the rear shocks were shot, leaking rear subframe bushings. And they wanted $4,000 to change those out, because it's a lot of work. You have to drop the subframe and, everything. And she wanted me to look at it. I looked at it. Shocks weren't leaking, didn't have an issue. Did a rebound test, no problem. There's no fluid, the best of my knowledge, in the subframe bushings, and they were solid. They were great. So again, maybe get a second opinion, take to numerous shops. This was a dealer. My goal is not to throw anyone under the bus, but my goal is to make people aware so they don't get taken advantage of. Lastly, you really should charge what you're worth. When I was establishing my little business on the side, I often would cut people deals just to get business and get going. But now that I'm established, people know my reputation for honesty and good quality work. I charge what I'm worth. If someone isn't willing to pay what you're worth, they really aren't worth your time, because they're going to be nickel and diming you about everything, maybe not getting good OEM parts or whatever. And then when it comes back because it's a aftermarket part, they're going to blame you. So be wise with your client choice. It's like they should be wise. A customer should be wise with the mechanic or service provider they choose. So it's a contract on both sides, and be choosy. You both should make out in a deal. And because of this style, I feel good about myself. I've built great relationships, repeat business, and referrals. I have customers who have moved out of state and still call me because they know I know their car. They know I'll tell them the truth and can give them valid input. Well, I hope you found this useful, and thank you for your time.